So, hello. I would like to explain you now the most principal transitional patterns. And these are now singularly demonstrated, but we have two possibilities in actual transitions that happen in natural movement. There can be pure forms of this transition, but there can also be mixture forms of transition. That means the more turns there are in, like orientation turns from forward to backward, or from prone to supine, from this position to this position. The more you have orientation changes, or the longer transitions are, the more we have combinations. And there is also a third factor. There is one underlying pattern that is pushing and pulling. And this pushing and pulling pattern is something that is in some transitions very obvious, and in some transitions it's absolutely not obvious. And you have to remember that there is always something going on in our organism before movement is happening. That means what you see is already an accumulation of actions that are then leading to a movement. But the preparation for it, that means tension and relaxation, depending on the transition, are happening also in stillness. And one of the most important how to recognize patterns are pushing and pulling into points of support. This is what I show you at first. So a very obvious pushing-pulling movement is when we have, again, crawling position. Then we have a movement that is this one. This is pushing into my point of support. Yeah? So there is muscles that are extending the leg, and they are actually producing a backward movement. And through the friction of the floor or the load of my foot, the point of support is strong, and this pushing movement can get an effect. Yeah? So this would be push. This would be a push. Okay, so this is a very obvious application of these principles. If I put it now into something that is not obviously seen as pushing and pulling, like side rolling, for example, the side roll hands leading, then this movement is actually led by a pulling movement if I would be drawn, but I have no context, it's just reaching, and reaching is actually a pushing movement, because when I want to get into these directions, parts of my body need to push off their points of support. That means if I'm reaching for like this, I'm also pushing into the points of support. Yeah? And that's in all movements. It means also in a side bend sit. If I'm going into this direction, I need to push into the points of support to make it happen. Yeah? So I'm pushing into the points of support, and I'm shifting my center of gravity, and I rotate also out of the center of gravity to fulfill a whole transition. Pushing movement, for example, is in creeping also. It's both factors. If I want to have a strong point of support where I can pull myself over, I first have to push into the ground. So if I don't use these points of support as strong points of support, this would happen. No effect. If I push into the points of support. These points of support are stronger than the ones that are also touching the ground. So these are able to pull my center of gravity forward. Okay, so every movement starts with a push or pull that then leads into a more obvious transition. Okay, so these obvious transitions are, just give you some variations. The side rolling, for example. Yeah? Side rolling like this. It's a pushing movement like this, or a pushing movement like this. Then we have rolling movements. 3 possibilities. Again, the same 3 transitions from prone lying to supine lying to sitting. One is the elbow roll, where I do a rolling movement. There's a rocking movement, where I do a rolling movement over the back, and there is a spine roll up, where I roll over my spine. Okay, so that's another very important aspect of or technique of transitioning. It's a rolling, and what comes before the rolling in transitions where I not just switch from position to position, where it's a switch from position to position through a orientation change, like in the rotation here, in the rolling, I always start with a rotation. Yeah? The rotation is here to have a body weight shift that in the end is pulling the rest of my body with it. So I collapse to the other side. Yeah? So it's a rotation. I can stop the rotation, or I can do the rotational movement until I lose balance, and then I'm in the rolling pattern. Okay. Another good example for rotation and rolling is that when I'm in a sitting position and I just want to look backwards, I do a rotation. Yeah. This is a rotation. If I let go of the points of support and the rest of my body is following me, then it becomes a rolling pattern. It's not just a rotation. Yeah? It becomes a rolling pattern like this. Yeah? So it's the same principle as in lying. One body part is starting or initiating. Yeah? Strong points of support serve as pulling and pushing points. And the rest of my body, if it follows, it becomes a rolling on a horizontal axis. Okay, the next one is the tripod transition. Tripod transition is also a rotational movement on 2 contralateral situated points of support. Yeah, so it's this movement. It's a rotation called tripod transition. In difference, rolling would look like this, ipsilateral rolling over. So whether it's a rolling pattern or a tripod transition is dependent on the points of support. If it's a contralateral point of support relationship, it's called a tripod transition. If it's an ipsilateral relationship, it's called a rolling pattern. Okay, and the last one, also already shown, is the hip hinge movement. So for example, a direct transition between kneeling and sitting could be a tripod transition, and to place my points of support to make this transition happen, I have to do a hip hinge. So a combination of pushing into the ground brings me up. Hip hinging, supporting contralaterally, pushing into the ground, and rotating and sitting. Yeah.